This is the 6th video I've made. It would be helpful if people could see them in chronological order that I made them in, because one more or less depends on the previous. So you'll be able to pull up the entire 6 by YouTube's Winky Wacky channel. Winky, W-I-N-K-Y, Wacky, W-A-C-K-Y channel. When I try to pull it up myself, I get pushed around Wiki Wacky, Wonky Wonky, but you got to insist on Winky Wacky, W-I-N-K-Y, W-A-C-K-Y. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, sex. Actually, Tantric yoga. I've heard a bunch of other videos trying to explain what Tantric yoga was, which is the yoga of enlightenment through sex, basically. I think we agree on that much. And I thought maybe, with me being a monk myself, 44 years of meditation, I might have something to say with it. I think about it a lot. In the previous videos, I posited a unity that underlies diversity, variously known as God, the unified field, tenuity, or sturdy laminated chicken fat, if you go with Mad Magazine's edition of it, and that the condition that we variously know as ignorance or sin or too pickle short of a happy meal or impaired motorist has to do with our disconnection with that field, that unity that is within us. We use the surface of our minds, and we don't awaken to the deeper level of minds, where minds function from a common source. And the whole thing about ethics is thinking and saying and doing things that move you toward consentience with that central pivot. So Tantric yoga, as I understand it, is the yoga of sex, and I wanted to say a few things about it. So the last thing I said in the previous video was that sex is a window into transcendence. For billions worldwide who live otherwise bleak, dreary lives, the only window, the major reason for bothering to stay alive. Another population subset sees in that a profit opportunity. Make people believe that its sexuality is something nasty to be ashamed of, immoral, and even illegal, then sell it back to them at the confession booth, the fashion industry, and the magazine rack at the pharmacy. Getting it wrong. Reflective of common misunderstandings, an ad announced new perfumes named Potent 8, that's the number 8, for men, and Captive 8 for women. The implication for men is that the sexual optimum is conquering and dominating, and for women that the ideal is capturing and enslaving. Both exemplify feeding the self-image, which is that thing that separates us and restricts us and keeps us from one another. 2. How are you? Revisiting Caucasoid suburbia. Notwithstanding strong communication from our own bodies that sex is the best thing in earthly existence, and notwithstanding all our anatomical, physiological, and psychological wiring and plumbing in place, we listen to some ding-dong doofus advocate ignorance by misreading ancient books. One result, the great state of Disconnecticut. A mainline female suburbanite from Disconnecticut will, for a start, not converse with you unless she already knows you. If this impossible barrier is miraculously surmounted, you must banter in cliché for about 2 years for her to feel officially that she knows you. When this criterion is met, she will then be willing to date you an infinite number of times, marry you, and grow old with you, still with absolutely no real intimacy and no substantive interaction, still talking about the weather, etc., still not knowing you and let alone growing with you. Waste as many years as you like. In circuitous city, Disconnecticut, you meet a woman at a socially correct place, endure the aforementioned biennium, marry her with the church's blessing and the community's approval, live in a correct suburban house, mow the lawn every Saturday, rake the leaves in November, and wear spotless clothes. The community says, ah, yes, an ideal marriage. Not acknowledging the existence of anything below the surface, however, you're not sharing the interior, capital I. Instead of in that big ocean of happily ever after, you live in small, separate puddles, accommodating and protecting each other's small selves or self-images. Never striking against, and that's an important word, I'll come back to it, against one another's rigid conceptual frameworks, growing gray but not wise, and probably taking tame, guided bus tours to boot. Even a bad 10-minute session with a hooker who hates the stupid Johns is more ethical than this relationship. You waste much less time, and probably you survive it. When life is only the exterior, differences predominate and become pressures. The synchronizing unity is never found. Necessarily, your effect on each other becomes inhibiting, weakening, discouraging, conflictive, and mutually destructive. Not transcending, you seek that unity at the surface. In order to nail yourselves solidly together, you attempt to freeze life's normal transformations into stability. You might as well try to nail two rivers together. If you persist, you arrest the very process of life, the nature of which is constant evolution. Remaining married, you die at age 40 from your stress on each other. Suggested rejoinders to the "Hi, how are you?" litany of suburbia. By sustaining delicate interactions among quarks, gluons, bosons, and fermions at 10 to the minus 15th centimeters. The word marry means unite. We marry pipes and wires. We use the word marriage, so it means union. Since, as mentioned, only the transcendent consciousness connects people, real marriage is at the level of the transcendent. Small selves or self-images don't marry. Compare. Marriages are made in heaven, a popular cliche, but it's true. Official, documented, notarized, commercial, ceremonialized, licensed marriage derives from and exists within ignorance, aka sin, separation from our common source, capital C, capital S. Rings and documents notwithstanding, it's gobbledygook, counterfeit, an empty claim to cosmic connection marriage. Fornication, defined as sexual intercourse between a man and a woman not married to each other, but actually men and women don't marry. People marry God. People marry the infinity that is within them. They are in a state of disconnection, and the reconnection is really what marriage is. Again, sin is separation, condition of estrangement from God, i.e. non-connection with cosmic consciousness. Living in sin means not transcending. If without transcendence we do sex, we're in sin. If without transcendence we don't do sex, we're in sin. I drew a little diagram here. Maybe it'll show up about gobbledygook marriage. Let's see. Yeah, I'll hold it for a second, but you guys can stop the video and look at it in more detail if you have time. Furthermore, since, as mentioned, there's only one soul, all real sexual transactions are with that one. That is everyone's counterpart, true love, real mate. Adultery is really non-transcendent sex, i.e. going through the procedures while retaining small self, or self-image. Self-images don't merge, transcend, or connect. Sloshing persons without surrender to that, capitals here, that only legitimate partner means you're not connecting at all, i.e. you're estranged, separate, in sin. Rings, documents, and public acceptance notwithstanding, self-images doing sex is fornication. Short of transcending, all sex is fornication. Corollary, on the other hand, sloshing in transcendence with 10 ardent maidens, or to switch religions in mid-sentence, sloshing having martyred the small self with 72 virgins, you've had only one counterpart. You are connected, you're not in sin. Fornication does not plunge us into sin. Short of enlightenment, sin is the state we are in to begin with. Paradoxically to commonly accepted lore, fornication is potentially a rocket ship for ascension from sin. The donkey digger can be the cosmic supercharger. It's not that, given we're all in the state of sin, we must not do sex. The ethicality of sex play is in whether it tends toward transcendence. In the Hindu religion, didn't Krishna have ardent maidens all over him all the time? And didn't the guy who wrote most of the books of the Bible in the Old Testament, Solomon, have 700 wives? Anyway. With mutual ardor as a prerequisite, boinking one another is not prima facie immoral. The imperative is to ride the flames of ardor into the transcendent. Sloshy sex and its orgasms can whack away at the self-image and its phantasmagoria of illusion. Interestingly, the etymology of the four-letter word that we can't say or it'll get deleted, from Middle Dutch F-O-K-K-E-N, is to strike against. Maybe those old folkers knew something. Anyway, doing sex can reveal infinity astoundingly when ardor burns out the small self, renders it as a burnt offering. In previous text, I discussed the word ardor and ardent and arson and so forth. This is not something new. This is something forgotten. See you next time.